He leaned back against the cafe wall, a faint smirk tugging at the corner of his lips, yet his eyes betrayed hesitation. "I'm not ready for commitment," he said, his voice calm but firm, as if reciting a truth he believed was absolute. I felt the words pierce through me like a sudden winter wind, but instead of stepping back, I let my gaze linger. A spark passed between us, unspoken yet undeniable, a friction neither of us could ignore. There was history here, uncharted and tantalizing, and in that moment, I saw him not as the man claiming he couldn't, but as someone desperately holding back from what he truly wanted. Our encounter had started casually, a chance meeting, a shared coffee, and a conversation that lingered long after the cups were empty. Yet there was always something beneath the surface, a quiet intensity that hummed every time our hands brushed or our eyes met across the table. He was guarded, wrapped in invisible walls built from fear or perhaps past heartbreak. I could feel the pulse of something forbidden, magnetic, an attraction that dared to exist in the space between caution and desire. I stepped closer, not needing to say a word, letting the silence speak. The way his jaw tightened, the faint clench of his hands, revealed everything he wasn't admitting aloud. And I simply smiled, letting the tension twist and curl around us, a delicate game of push and pull. Every instinct screamed that this was dangerous, yet irresistible. I knew that the right word, the right glance, could shift everything. As I spoke, my voice calm but deliberately close, he froze. The air between us thickened, heavy with anticipation. The kind of moment where the world falls away, leaving only two people suspended on the edge of something electric and uncertain. And just as he opened his mouth, ready to retreat, or perhaps surrender, I let my reply hang, a subtle challenge wrapped in quiet certainty. His eyes widened, a mixture of shock and longing, and I could see it, the shift. Suddenly, the man who claimed he couldn't, seemed incapable of looking away. He swallowed, a faint tremor betraying his calm facade, and I noticed the subtle shift in his posture. He wasn't pulling away, not completely. Instead, his eyes flicked to mine, searching, questioning, yet unwilling to fully cross the invisible line we both knew existed. I leaned just slightly closer, the air between us thrumming with unspoken words. Every brush of our arms, every shift in stance, was amplified in that small, charged space. You make it sound so easy," he said quietly, almost to himself. His voice carried the weight of disbelief, but also a hint of longing I couldn't ignore. I let a soft, almost teasing smile play on my lips, letting my gaze hold his a heartbeat longer than necessary. The silence that followed was deafening, full of possibilities neither of us dared speak aloud. There was a magnetic pull in the way he studied me, like he was trying to decipher something buried deep beneath the surface. I wanted to tell him that his walls fascinated me, that I wasn't afraid of them, but the words didn't come. Instead, I let my hand brush against the edge of the table, inches from his, close enough for him to notice, close enough for a spark to jump. His chest rose slightly faster, his jaw tightened, and I felt the unspoken acknowledgement of the tension crackling between us. "I shouldn't," he murmured, gaze darting away, then back. There was a storm in his eyes, a battle between restraint and desire. And I understood it perfectly, because I felt the same. The pull toward him was irresistible, yet the timing, the fears, the invisible chains neither of us had named, held us apart. I leaned back, letting a soft laugh escape me, light but charged, a reminder that I could play this game as well. The flicker of amusement in his eyes met mine, and for a moment, it felt as if the world around us didn't exist, just two people caught in a dance of proximity, fleeting touches, and silent stares. Every glance, every small gesture, carried a weight far heavier than words could convey. We lingered in the cafe, the low hum of conversations around us fading into nothing. I watched him wrestle with himself, every subtle movement a testament to the storm brewing inside. There was a story behind those guarded eyes, a past he didn't share, and I felt it like a pulse in the air between us. I wanted to ask, to reach across the table and strip away the armor he wore so well, but fear, or perhaps respect, held me back. He shifted, brushing a stray strand of hair from his forehead, and I felt the phantom echo of his fingers nearly grazing mine. My heart leapt, and I realized the tension had thickened to almost unbearable levels. Neither of us spoke, because words would betray us both, but the silence was charged, electric. Each glance, each hesitant movement, felt like a confession neither of us could utter. I don't know if I can," he whispered finally, voice low, almost breaking. His eyes, normally so controlled, flickered with vulnerability. It wasn't that he didn't want me. It was that he wanted me too much, and that was scarier than anything else. I understood that ache all too well. Desire so strong it demanded surrender, yet threatened to consume everything you held dear. I leaned slightly forward, the warmth between us rising with the quiet intensity, feeling as if the air itself had thickened, heavy and electric. Our knees brushed under the table, a fleeting contact that sent shivers up my spine. I almost reached for his hand, but pulled back just as quickly, knowing that yielding too fast could undo the fragile control we both clung to. There was a history here, invisible but palpable, a mix of past heartbreaks, personal demons, and unspoken rules. Yet, despite every rational reason to step away, we stayed, drawn together by something neither could deny. Every flicker of a smile, every half-breathed word, every accidental touch, layered the tension, making it heavier, hotter, almost impossible to bear. We remained suspended in that moment, teetering on the brink. He looked at me, and I looked back, neither of us yielding, yet neither able to escape. The desire was thick, almost tactile, a storm held in our lungs and fingertips. And in that charged silence, I knew, when this wall breaks, nothing will ever be the same. Time seemed to stretch, elongating every heartbeat, every quiet inhalation between us. The cafe around us blurred into soft, golden shapes, but the world contracted to the small space separating our faces. I could feel the weight of him, the pull of his presence, the subtle rise and fall of his chest, the tension coiled beneath his calm exterior. I wanted to reach, to close the distance, but part of me feared that one move could unravel everything we'd held back until now. His gaze found mine again, and in that look was an entire conversation, unspoken yet profoundly understood. A confession lingered on his lips, raw and vulnerable, as though he had been rehearsing it silently for months, only to be trapped in the gravity of my stare. I leaned slightly closer, the warmth between us rising with the quiet intensity, feeling as if the air itself had thickened, heavy and electric. He started, then hesitated, a flicker of frustration and longing crossing his features. His fingers brushed against the edge of my hand, a touch so fleeting it could have been imagined, yet it made my chest tighten and my mind spin. That small contact held more meaning than words ever could. My own hand twitched, half rising, craving the connection we had both denied ourselves, but I let it fall back to my lap, savoring the tension. A silence stretched between us, deeper than the night outside the cafe windows, carrying the weight of everything unspoken. Our eyes lingered, tracing the lines of each other's faces, memorizing the subtle expressions, the quiet vulnerability we had both been hiding. The longing was tangible, almost painful, a magnetic force pressing us toward each other even as our minds screamed caution. And then he leaned, just a fraction closer, his breath mingling with mine, a soft whisper of a confession caught between words. The world held its breath with us. Every nerve in my body screamed in recognition of the closeness, the heat, the desire for a connection we were only allowed to imagine. And in that suspended moment, it felt as though we had crossed every boundary, touched every secret, without ever needing to speak. The rain fell softly outside, streaking the windows with silver trails, painting the cafe in a muted, intimate glow. The world beyond those walls disappeared, leaving only the two of us suspended in a bubble of heat and quiet longing. Every flicker of movement, every shift in the seat, felt magnified, a language of its own. The air was thick with anticipation, a hum neither of us could deny. He reached for me, finally, not with urgency, but with careful deliberation, as if every inch closer carried a lifetime of unsaid words. I didn't flinch. Instead, I let myself lean forward, my breath mingling with his in the space we had been craving. The touch was minimal, just fingertips brushing along a hand, a shoulder grazing a knee, but it spoke volumes. Every inch of proximity seemed to whisper the confessions we had both hoarded, the desire that had been simmering for months. Her laugh, soft and unguarded, mingled with the rhythmic tapping of rain against the windows. He caught it in a way that made the moment stretch, as though time itself had paused for us. Our eyes held one another's, wordless and burning, and I realized we didn't need to speak. Our bodies spoke the words we couldn't find in language, the relief, the fear, the exhilaration of finally surrendering to what had always been inevitable. I felt his breath shift, soft and warm against my skin, and I let my head tilt closer, almost resting against him, heart sinking in slow, deliberate rhythm. Every exhale, every tiny shiver, carried meaning. The world outside, gray and rainy, faded to a gentle blur, leaving only warmth and quiet electricity between us. We moved as if in perfect choreography, no words necessary. A hand on the small of a back, a forehead resting lightly against another, breaths mingling and slowing, yet burning in intensity. It wasn't a physical act, it was the emotional surrender that made the moment breathtaking. Her breath melted into his pulse pressed close to hers, and for the first time, the barriers that had held them apart seemed to dissolve, leaving only raw, undeniable connection. The rain continued its gentle symphony, a soft accompaniment to the unspoken poetry of two people finally letting go. Every touch, every glance, every quiet inhalation felt monumental, a lifetime of longing condensed into a single night. And in that suspended, golden haze of warmth, tension, and quiet ecstasy, we existed only for each other, the world outside completely irrelevant. Morning light seeped through the rain-speckled windows, soft and diffused, painting the room in muted gold. The cafe, or rather, the corner we had claimed, was quiet now, emptied of the night's hushed whispers and clinking cups. And yet, the echoes of what had passed lingered in the air like a delicate perfume, sweet, intoxicating, and slightly haunting. He sat across from me, fingers drumming lightly on the table, eyes distant, tracing patterns on the worn wood as if searching for answers in its grain. I watched him, my own thoughts tangled in the aftermath. Was it love that had pulled us together, or simply the release of months of restraint? Did the night make us braver, or did it only expose the cracks we had both been hiding from? We spoke little, the conversation unnecessary, yet unavoidable. Every glance carried weight, every subtle movement a conversation of its own. My hand hovered near his, almost touching, but I withdrew, unsure if closeness now was comfort or complication. His lips curved slightly in that familiar, unreadable expression, a mixture of guilt and longing. I understood it perfectly, the night had been real, and yet the morning demanded answers we weren't ready to give. Then came the knock at the cafe door, soft but insistent, breaking the fragile bubble we occupied. A familiar voice called out, and in walked someone from his past, a friend, or perhaps a secret long buried, forcing both of us to acknowledge the world beyond our small cocoon. His body stiffened, a flicker of surprise and tension crossing his face, and I felt the connection between us tighten, fragile but unbroken. We were caught between the intensity of what had passed and the uncertainty of what was next. Silence stretched, heavy and electric, but this time it carried a different resonance. We had crossed a line together, shared a truth in quiet surrender, and now nothing could reduce the bond we had formed. The morning was messy, unsure, raw, but it was ours. And beneath the questions, the hesitation, and the unexpected interruption, a single certainty remained: we had found each other in a storm of restraint and longing, and that connection could not be erased. The city outside was quiet now, the morning rain reduced to a gentle drizzle, softening the edges of the world. We sat side by side in that same corner cafe, shoulders just touching, and for the first time in months, it felt like everything had slowed down to match the rhythm of our hearts. He rested his forehead gently against mine, a quiet gesture heavy with unspoken promises. Neither of us needed words, the tension of the past, the longing, the battles with fear and restraint, all of it had found its resting place in this shared moment. My hand lightly curled around his, and the warmth that spread through me was not just physical, but a deep, settling peace. I think I'm ready," he whispered, almost as if saying it aloud made it more real. His voice was steady now, softer than ever, and I could feel the sincerity behind it. I leaned into him slightly, letting my cheek brush his temple, and for the first time, I believed that love, patient, tender, and resilient, could exist without rushing, without breaking. The cafe hum faded further, leaving only the quiet comfort of togetherness. We didn't need grand gestures or dramatic confessions. Just the slow rise and fall of our breaths, the shared warmth of bodies leaning into one another, and the unspoken acknowledgement that we had finally found our equilibrium. The walls that had once kept us apart weren't gone, they were softened, reshaped by understanding, trust, and the quiet decision to stay. Outside, the city gleamed under the clearing skies, a soft light reflecting the calm inside us. I closed my eyes for a moment, letting the memory of our struggle and the sweetness of this peace mingle. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't immediate, but it was ours, and that made it enough. And in that gentle, lingering silence, I realized that sometimes love doesn't roar, it whispers, it waits, it chooses, and finally, it stays.